In review from the Ingraham Angle segment tonight, let's bring in Laura Ingraham to assess Kennedy from the conservative point of view. She joins us now from Washington. So you just heard Geraldo wax poetic from a fairly liberal point of view. How do you assess Kennedy?
Look, I grew up politically in the 1980s, Bill. So for me, as a young Reaganite, Ted Kennedy defined what we pretty much stood against. I mean, when Reagan was for cutting taxes, Ted Kennedy was for higher taxes. When Reagan was for taking this tougher, more aggressive stance with the Soviets, Ted Kennedy was for nuclear disarmament. And you can go issue after issue down the line on both domestic and foreign policy. And obviously, he stood far to the left, not only of his own party, but certainly where the country had been moving for the early years in the 1980s. And I would argue that, despite all the, the commentary about Ted Kennedy's political legacy, that look, I mean, you're seeing the opposition today to the large government programs and the large government presence in our lives that Ted Kennedy really championed for his entire life. That in and of itself is quite interesting in this discussion of his legacy, political and otherwise.
Now, Mara says that because he did that, because he was the barometer of the left, that was a good thing, that it challenged the right and it brought debate into the arena and it made the country stronger. Do you agree?
Well, I think there was no short of people with really silly and, foolhardy ideas when it came to delivering solutions to the people of this country. And whether it was the ERA or back then, 30 years ago, he was in favor of nationalized medicine. Now we're calling it the public option, which would lead to nationalized medicine. The country really stood against that. So I guess you could say, look, it's good to have two poles and then people can meet somewhere in the middle. But I would submit that still to this day, even with the election of Barack Obama, the dominant political philosophy in this country and the dominant viewpoint of the people still trends slightly to the right.
No, I don't think there's any of that. All the polls show that.
Yeah.
Now, do you think Kennedy was a sincere man? I mean, here's a wealthy guy, a child of privilege, born into a fabled family, who takes up the mantle and moves the Kennedy legacy to the left. I mean, if you look at Robert Kennedy and John Kennedy, they were not nearly as liberal.
No way.
No,
they were pro-life. They were for lower taxes.
Right.
They were for an aggressive foreign policy. Yeah, so he was to the left of both of them.
Was Kennedy sincere in his belief system, or was it posturing for political reasons?
Well, I don't think it. I mean, I don't know the answer to that question. I do think that in one way, conservatives can take a bit of a lesson from Ted Kennedy, and people are going to be shocked that I say this, but look, whatever you think about Ted Kennedy, he was not a big compromiser. He might have gone out to dinner with Orrin Hatch, but Ted Kennedy fought for left-wing ideas, liberalism, if that's what you want to call it, and he stood beside liberal values, and he was not going to abandon them, regardless of the popularity of Reagan.
Absolutely true.
And Bush.
But he could be reasoned with, I mentioned in the Talking Points memo on the child molester, the sexual molester federal act to get.
You can find examples in every legislative career.
But here's what happened, and I want to tell the folks this. He was holding it up single-handedly. John Walsh and I were driving this thing,
right.
Walsh more than me. And Kennedy was holding it up in committee, wouldn't put it out when everybody knew it would pass. We had a conversation with Kennedy. We said, look, we respect you and your belief system, even though we disagree with some of it, but this is hurting the kids. And you got 24 hours to get this thing out there, or it's going to be full bore. With all due respect, it's going to be full bore. It's going to be you. And you know what Kennedy said? He said, you're right. It's hurting the kids. We got to do stuff to get the kids protected. So I'm going to kick it out. He did.
Well, he did that, but he also supported an incredibly liberal abortion policy in the United States and lobbied on behalf of abortion rights, which, as Christians, Catholics, many people of good conscience, they simply, that just doesn't comport with this idea of protecting the children.
If you were an angel, it'd be an interesting conversation between St. Peter and Ted Kennedy about that. I've always wondered that because Kennedy was a committed Roman Catholic.
The question, right? I think that I'm not going to judge that.
No,
I like what you said at the beginning of the show.
Can't.
I'm not going to judge that. Nope. But what I think I think we have to be careful of is overstating the political accomplishments of Ted Kennedy. He definitely pushed a lot of liberal ideas, and some successfully. But was the country moved to the left in a way that he wanted it to be,
No.
even with the election of Barack Obama?
No.
And I would submit no.
Okay. Laura Ingraham, everybody, we appreciate it.